everyone. This is Anastasia with One Cosmic Heart. I wanted to just do a little quick live here. I did something last night, and if anyone's interested in checking that out, it was pretty short. It was about 15 minutes, and this is just sort of like a little addition or PS because when I was going to bed, I said to myself, oh my gosh, this was an important thing to share. And it came to me later. So this is sort of a continuation of what I was doing last night. So, and you can check that out. But the topic is rules and how strict you are with different rules in your life. And so let me just share the story. Years ago, and this is going back roughly 20 years or so, I had met someone and very wonderful human being. She was a dance teacher, and I'm trying to remember the type of dance, possibly ballet, but she was very disciplined, not only with her body, but with her diet and her spiritual practices. And it showed in her body how disciplined she was. So we had met through this book study group. It was a spiritual book study group. That's where we met and we became friends. And I was sharing with her that I was doing yoga, and my yoga teacher also attuned me to level 1 Reiki. For those of you that are familiar with that, it's an energy practice. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, Thea. Um, I always forget. I know we had this conversation, Thea, but I think it's Thea. So nice to see you. So I was sharing with her that I did yoga and that also doing Reiki, that I just learned Reiki. And again, it was my yoga instructor that attuned me to level 1 Reiki, which is a type of energy work. And she said to me, it was so interesting. She said, you can't do both. You can't do yoga and Reiki. And I was a little confused. I said to myself, I asked her, I said, why not? And she said, well, one, and I think she meant Reiki, one moves the energy from your crown down into your body, which it does. And then the Reiki moves wherever it needs to go. And she said, and yoga, when you do yoga, that energy moves up, like from your feet or from your spine and up. So she said, now you're mixing the energies and now you're confusing the body. And I forget exactly what she said, but like basically neither is going to be effective. And not that you're doing damage, but that neither is really effective. And that you have to pick one or the other. And she didn't mean like one at a time. She literally meant you can only do yoga or you can only do Reiki. And that really wasn't my belief system at the time, and it still isn't. And I mean, the ironic part is that my yoga teacher has tuned me to Reiki. So this was just this person's belief system, which I wasn't going to argue with because either she felt that inside was true for herself or somebody else told her that this is how these practices work. So I just want to share that as yeah, yeah, BS, right? Like, um, I just think that we have to do what's right for us. I work with lots of different types of energy work. I mix and match. I bring in what the person needs, and I always ask, and I'm always guided. So that's how I work, and that's how most people work. Um, but I just, really the point of this is just to talk about how sometimes our limiting belief systems can interfere and maybe not help us move forward in the best way. But having said that, that's what worked for her. That's what made sense to her and was important to her. So that's why I wasn't going to really argue with her. It was like, that works for you. That's fantastic. This is what works for me. Um, she still was trying to convince me, but I just knew what worked for me. I know that energy goes where it needs to go. So once you have your hands on somebody with Reiki, it goes wherever it needs to go in the body. So it might move down, it might move up, it might move sideways, it might wiggle. I mean, it just does whatever it needs for that person. That's what I understand. The only, I just got off a Zoom thing with one of my herbal teachers. So rules and protocols are important. Like when you're following a certain protocol, if you are trying to do a cleanse, trying to get rid of something, like today we're talking about, one of the things we were talking about is removing parasites for the body. So yes, in that case, then you are going to follow a protocol. And if it says while you're trying to remove parasites not to eat something or not to drink something because it's going to impede that cleansing process, then I'm all for the rules and protocol in that sense. But um, just wanted to caution people about that, just because, and you guys can, like I said, if you want to go back and listen to the short live I did last night, um, I'm just kind of bumping into, people have their own belief systems, which is wonderful. And mine have changed so much throughout the years as I change and I learn new things. I'm going to incorporate something new that makes sense to me and feels good. And I might drop something or not do something as much. And it's all beautiful. It's what we need at the time. The most important thing is to tune in, listen to your body and your intuition, and say, does this work for me today? It might work for me today, and then tomorrow it might not work, right? Like I might want to go for a walk today and tomorrow, but I may not want to walk, the next 3 days. I might want to do something else. So just kind of talking about little kind of practical, mundane things, but it does leak into our thoughts. And well, if I do this, then I can't do that. Or if I think this particular way, then I can't have this thought, right? And it's like, why not? It's just a thought. You're just exploring. You're seeing what makes sense or what doesn't. Um, are you going to study chemistry but not math? I mean, everything is connected. So in that sense, all of life is connected. All of life is sacred. It all works together. And again, it's just what feels right to you, what works for you. Um, so, yeah, I just wanted to caution people about not having such strictness, and to allow yourself to have some fluidity and movement and be curious about things and say, oh, I never thought of that. I never thought about that in that way. And I will be honest, and I'm sorry I can't remember the example, but I remember in my 20s saying, I will never, ever, 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 ever do, and then it was whatever it was that I said to myself. And I found myself probably 6 to 10 years later doing that very thing. And you would think it would be so important that I would remember. I don't remember. What I remember is telling myself I will never ever ever do that thing. And I find myself thinking it now too. I find myself having a change in a thought or belief system or trying something new. And I remember when I was younger going, I would never do that. Like I just would never do that. And the first time it happened, and I had that radical, like I did the thing I said I was never going to do. I said to myself, I'm never going to say that again. I'm just never, because I learned such a strong lesson, is not to put a limit on myself and not to also judge myself and maybe judge like my future self. I mean, one thing that scares the crap out of me is to jump out of a plane. It's really just such a frightening thing to me because I don't like being up high. The minute I'm high, I want to get grounded and close to the earth. So that I have said, I said I will never jump out of a plane. But I know full well that just because I said it doesn't mean that I may not end up doing that, because I think that that's how funny the universe is and how funny God is, or whatever you want to call it. But I think that definitely there's a sense of humor there when we say something like, I'm never going to do that, or never think that, I'll never go there, or whatever it is. So Yeah, I think that's it. Like I said, this is just sort of an addition to what I was sharing last night, and that it's important to stay open, stay curious. And if we have a charge around something, like if we say, oh, I'm not, never going to do that. So, what I'm really practicing as much as I can every day is to go in and say, why do I think that? Where did I learn that that's something to be scared about? And just to go in. And I may still never jump out of a plane in this lifetime. And I'm fine with that. I don't have to prove anything to myself or anyone else by conquering that fear because it's a pretty big fear right now. But I'm open to the possibility of that changing because I think that it's so freeing when I watch people jump out of planes and the exhilaration and freedom that is felt. You can see it on their face and their bodies relax. Eventually, the body relaxes. So I think it's an incredible thing. And sometimes the thing that we fear the most is sometimes the thing that's going to set us free and give us a lot of happiness, joy, and a sense of bliss. So again, try to expand this into your world. And when you have a thought of, yeah, would never do that or try that or think that, or that's when I say philosophy, I don't mean like philosophy like in school, but just a thought, a belief system. That's a philosophy that I would never have. All right, well, why not? Like, try it out. Like, when people travel to other countries, okay, it doesn't mean that you have to start practicing. If I went to India, which I've not been, but it doesn't mean I have to practice in the, if I were to go to a temple or something like that or a sacred community, I don't have to, but I'm open to the idea of being curious about how people live, what they eat, things like that. So I think when people travel, it's just sort of, it's a given that they're going to explore and open their minds. Um, but for me, I won't speak for other people. I think for me, living in like one place and not, if I don't like travel for a while, then I just sort of get used to my own, like kind of my own routine and a rut. And but if you kind of step outside that zone and say, oh, this is how other people live, or this is what other people do or think, or how they express themselves, it's just there's so many possibilities and so much creativity out there, and it's a huge world. And I'm learning to not limit myself and just be open. And it doesn't mean you have to try everything, and it doesn't mean you have to adopt every belief system, but just to be open, because I find that the less I judge, um, the more free I am. And again, and I've said this before, the minute I judge another person or an action that somebody else does, I'm really judging myself. If I think, oh, blah, 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 right, about someone else, I'm looking outside, that's a projection. I'm really saying that about myself. It really has nothing to do with the other person. And that's why it's so important to remember not to take things personally when people may seem to come at you with a judgment or a harsh comment or something, that it's what they're saying is about them. It always comes back to them. But because it's coming out of their mouth and sort of being projected onto you, you feel like, oh, it's an attack or it's something coming my way. And that's absolutely not true. We just all have our stories and our history and our traumas and the things that trigger us. And that's where people are speaking from. And you can see that clearly when you have kind of a rough interaction with someone that you've never met, ever, 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 because there's something either about you or about how you speak or the way you look, the way your hair is, that's reminding them of something from their past. So it's really never about us. So I try to remember that, to do my best. Yep, respect the traditions that they have wherever you travel. That's absolutely right, because you are in um, their home and their country and that's their space. So it's nice to observe and be curious and partake if you want, and don't if you don't. And the beautiful thing about traveling, um, you know, probably in the last 100 years, is that um, people can travel in other countries, of course, want your commerce. They want you there. They want you to spend money there. So they are open to you being there. I know things have changed a little bit recently, but people are open to you there, and they're willing to share their culture with you. Whereas hundreds of years ago, people might have been fearful of other people visiting because people were not really visiting; they were coming and taking over and kind of scooping up territory and things like that. So it's different now. So it's a great time to be alive. So that's all that I have for you today. Thanks everyone for joining in. And like I said, this was kind of burning inside of me, and I'm feeling lately like if I have something to say, I'm just going to hop on, share my 2 cents, and hope that it resonates with some of you out there. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And thank you for joining my love who commented here. I hope you have a beautiful day, and anyone else watching later. All right. I'll see you all later. Bye.